we'll have to comb back through the comments and see who did get it right. Okay, let's park MotoGP there for the minute and have a look at Moto2 and Moto3. Moto2 first, the second win of the season for Celestino Vietti, who seemed to have really more than enough pace to sort of pull away and clinch the win from Somkhat Chantra and Ai Agura in third. Keith, what did you make of the Moto2 action? Because it looked a bit stagnant during the main bulk of it, but it really got good towards the end of those races.
I think Moto2 traditionally is a bit that way inclined, isn't it, as a race? But I mean, Celestino Vietti, yeah, superstar. He's coming on really, really nicely. But for me, it's still Somkhat Chantra. You know, the Thai rider, we know he's fast, but it's his consistency that's always been blown out the window. And maybe that win in Mandalika is what he needed to just get over that self-doubt, that extra little bit. You can never really tell from watching on TV whether a rider is, you can tell when they're really riding tight, but when it's just a little bit forced, when it's a little bit strained, you only need to be just tightened up a little bit in your body and not letting the thing flow properly to cause an accident, to just put a little bit too much input into a bike and down you go. And Chantra always sort of had that feel about him. But to second place again, I think it's a good ride from him, to be honest. And the Indomitsu team, I mean, the Honda Team Asia, to finish second and third on the podium, Ai Agura, as you've said, that's a great result for Hiro Oyama's team. I think we've got a great Moto2 series to come at the moment. Celestino Vietti is looking very, very strong. If he can carry on this momentum at the minute, he's definitely going to be the man to beat. And a great ride, actually, for Jake. I haven't spoken about Jake Dixon. Sorry, I mean, I should have really, Jake Dixon did a great job, a workmanlike job of finishing up in the top five. It was his aim, and he finished in the top five. He looked good all weekend. So Dixon as well is put himself. This is not an easy class. This is a very, very tight, difficult class. So to be in the top 10 is an achievement. But Dixon is looking very, very classy at the moment.
I was just going to say, you've got to feel sorry for Fermin Aldeguer, haven't you? The rookie. I mean, a perfect weekend up until the race. And then, well, Keith, I'd like to hear your opinion on that clash, really. But what a shame. I mean, you can see how distraught he was afterwards. I mean, he was riding fantastically, wasn't he?
Yeah, the stewards decided no penalty. But, I mean, I have to say, I think there was a percentage that probably should have been a penalty. It would have been harsh, even in the circumstances. I mean, whenever, lines collide in that situation. Slight mistake, Aldeguer was there and the coming together. I mean, that was another one of those spectacular Dorna moments, wasn't it? I mean, the footage of that particular accident was absolutely incredible. He was unlucky, but how many times have we seen that where a rider is coming back down to the line when someone has got underneath them? I always remember, I think it was Danny Pedrosa, wasn't it, at Jerez? Those fast corners.
Yes.
Was it a ref? And three of them all went down when he came back to the line and took everybody out. You shouldn't do it, but of course you always do. You're squaring the corner off. You're trying to force the guy behind not to be able to get up the inside. There were some spectacular corners. Those final 13 and 14, like I say before, Dromo, take your hat off. Design that final set of corners. Some spectacular ways around those last couple of corners, and the opportunities are always there for a pass. But in that case, I'm glad you put me on the spot with that, Harry, and I haven't answered your question, have I? Really? But
well, I've got a better question. Well, I say it's a better question for you, but it's with Chantra and Ai Agura both doing very well on the podium. Not that the pressure wasn't already there for Taka Nakagami, but does that suddenly he see them both get podiums, not just out in Argentina, but throughout the blinding starts really to their Moto2 campaigns? Is Nakagami going to be extraordinary? I know we've spoken to death nearly at times last year about Nakagami needs to get a win under his belt. He can't keep it together. But time rolls on, same questions are asked.
I get the feeling he will. I get the feeling that Nakagami will. He was unlucky this weekend. I mean, he tested positive for COVID, so he couldn't get out there to the last minute. I mean, it was a bit of a cock up right from the start for him. He wasn't riding. Suddenly the press sheets came through, the entry sheets came through to say that Nakagami was out for the weekend, and all of a sudden he turns up on an aeroplane. It's kind of like he was on the wrong foot straight away. But Nakagami's got pace. it's a bit of an Aleix Espargaro situation, isn't it? I mean, he should have won back in Aragon, if you remember, when he set that bloody time and all the rest of it, and he went and binned it at the first corner. You know, it's one of them ones where I get the feeling his time will come, but he couldn't be in a more competitive field. You don't have to have much of a, you don't have to be more than a half a degree off to be completely down in the back end of the field in MotoGP that nowadays. Good luck to him.
Yeah, I was going to say, I guess he might take some inspiration from these 9 riders that have already been on the podium. You know, it might give these guys that haven't yet been there, they might think, well, hang on a minute, you know, if all these guys can stand on the podium, so can I. And yeah, Harry, I think you've got to imagine that both the Honda Team Asia riders, it's a question of when, not if they can continue. That is, obviously, this front-running podium form. The obvious place for them to go is into a satellite Honda team. So that will be putting pressure on, you know, Alex Marquez and Nakagami. Nakagami, of course, speaking about Aleix, Nakagami hasn't had a podium yet. So that's the first step for him. You know, he's overdue one, as Keith was saying. I mean, it looked like he was favourite for the win, let alone a podium at Aragon a couple of years ago, and it all went wrong. So, yeah, you've got to imagine seeing these young guys coming up and on the podium in Moto2. It's certainly going to add to his motivation, I guess you could say.
And Taka was the best Honda in the end at the end of MotoGP. So once Pole crashed out. Okay, Moto3. Well, in Moto2, I should say Vietti extends his title lead as well. But in Moto3, we'll see off that before we move on to looking at this weekend's action. Sergio Garcia put on a bit of a final daring move on Dennis Foggia to bring victory home ahead of Ayumu Sasaki, who rounded out the podium. Meanwhile, Jaume Masia and Andrea Mini decided to take each other out with that the knee hit incident that saw them both fly off. But Keith, will come to you on this. Yeah, Moto3, well, that provided action yet again. It's always good fun watching Moto3.
And in that final set of corners again that I keep banging on about. You know, it was one of them ones. Garcia's move was just, I jumped out of my chair and screamed in my house here. I mean, like, my neighbours must think we're bloody mad or I'm killing my family or something. And it's kind of one of them ones where I literally, it was just, the last person I saw make a move like that stuck was Cal Crutchlow in that corner. He did a brilliant manoeuvre through there at the time. And in MotoGP, it's even harder. But it's just kind of one of them ones where you get it right and you go, ooh. And then if you get it wrong, then you go, oh, Christ. You know, it's kind of like, it was just a beautiful move. But Garcia is a hard guy. There's no doubt about it. And even Foggia was congratulated him on that one. It was kind of hard, but very fair and definitely on. So he deserved the win, no doubt about it, for that move alone.
Yeah, it was a great move, wasn't it? And his teammate Guevara, he'd obviously retired with some sort of technical problem, didn't he? Otherwise, it could have been 2 of the Aspar guys up there on the podium, maybe. And Sasaki fought back from the long lap and just snatched the final podium pace. I think in that same corner, Keith, we were all obviously looking at the victory battle, and I think at the same time he made the pass there. It's a great corner for those sort of last lap, last gasp passes, isn't it? And a fitting end to a pretty thrilling Moto3 race. It looked like Garcia might have got away, but then he was reeled in, and the last laps were certainly pretty thrilling.
Well, that was the Moto3 action as ever. Let's move on, I think, back to MotoGP, if I may be so bold, and look ahead to this weekend. We're back to the circuit of the Americas, Keith. Last time out, bumps was the talk of the town. It was all a bit too bumpy for MotoGP, but what can we expect for this time around?
Well, you got to feel a bit sorry for Circuit of the Americas, because it's like the shifting sands of Texas, really, isn't it? It's these bumps appear from virtually nowhere. They planed them, if you remember, some time ago. By that I mean planing the surface off, and left this incredible shot blast dust on the top of it. Millions of pounds worth of motorbikes being shot blasted with all this, whatever it is they've made the track out of. And it was all up your nose. It was in your eyes. It was everywhere. I mean, I'm amazed there weren't more complaints about the whole thing. Back in the day, they just kind of sucked it up and got on with it. Then we had the bumps, some bumps in some horrendous places where you can really come unstuck. They've been out there again, resurfacing bits of the track. We'll wait and see when we get there. I mean, the Circuit of the Americas, it's a great event, but it always feels like it's hanging on by the skin of its teeth financially, and it has done since it first opened. Effectively, great venue. Austin is a fantastic city. Everything you want, you know, is there basically. It's the accommodation is there, the outlook is there, the airport is there, the atmosphere is there. It is not like Texas, to be honest. I mean, it's a bit more like a little bit of California in Texas. Um, I think everybody loves being in Austin, but the racetrack is just, not quite standing up. It's not, the test of time is not really working too well with it. We'll wait and see what happens when we get there. It might, again, but in any adversity, there's always somebody, some team that grabs a little bit of advantage in that situation. It's somebody who makes the most of that situation, providing they all remain safe. And that's my biggest concern, is that some of those bumps were in really dangerous places. Riders, can find themselves in all sorts of trouble on some very fast parts of the track. And you don't want to be launching over the handlebars because someone hasn't flattened the track out properly.
The first thing, of course, will be to get the freight there, won't it? It's normally there's a bit more of a gap, isn't there, between? It's still quite a big journey, isn't it? And I know that there were media asking for the flight numbers for the cargo, so I think there'll be a few more sort of flight radar watching this week. I think it's due to arrive Wednesday or Thursday, isn't it? People were saying to Carmelo Espeleta on the Thursday, is this kind of issue that you've had here, will this make you rethink sort of some of the calendar and things like that? And he said, well, look, we had a weekend off between Indonesia and Argentina. What more could we do, kind of thing? That should have been enough. But there is, the back-to-back races, I think, certainly. And remember, we've got, is it Aragon and then Japan in September as a back-to-back? I mean, that's one of the situations where perhaps in future, Dawn, I might just think a bit more about, should we really put a weekend off when you've got such a big gap between the races? So, but yeah, I mean, all being well, the freight will arrive on time in Austin, and we'll have a good weekend.
It was a technical fault, though, wasn't it, that took the plane out of there? And I mean, I don't know how many times you sat on the tarmac where they've had a slight technical fault and flick the bulb in the cabin trying to get the thing to light back up again. I mean, it's kind of one of them jobs, isn't it? When you get a technical fault in an aircraft, you don't sort of ride around it. You kind of have to fix it. And it has to be fixed by a certified person. So I think these planes found themselves stuck in Africa, didn't they? There was the sort of refueling point was in Africa. Now, forgive me if I've got this completely wrong, but, I don't know what the spare part situation is for slightly aged freighters. But, you look at the age of freighters aren't like, passenger aircraft, which are sort of 15, 20 years old tops. These things will be 30 odd years old. They can be quite old. Even though they're airworthy, they are quite old aircraft. Even in the biggest firms that run, freighters, they're older aircraft because they're able to run them in that manner. They don't do the same stop-start mileage that a passenger plane does. They tend to do much longer runs, so therefore they can spread the age of the plane out over a greater number of years. All this we've learned in the last weekend because everybody's been looking up the reasons why. But you're right. I mean, it's a situation where I think with Termas, it was harder in that Tucumán is a difficult airport to get at. It was a longer. I think from Termas, to out to Austin is going to be much easier from a flight distance point of view, from a flight plan point of view. But if you're going to get an aircraft that breaks down with half your paddock's kit on it, then that could be an every week occurrence if you're unlucky.
Well, I think a lot of not just motorsport, I think sports are very much against it as well, because for the reasons you've said it there, but also, right now planes can't fly over Russia. There's that's all being delayed as well, with freight planes being used up elsewhere. So there's lots of things going on in the world that are, delaying things quite naturally. So there's a lot of reasons as to why these things are occurring. So we'll see how it goes for COTA. I think then it brings us on to the worst part of the show, and that's your predictions. I was just looking up, just confirming who the podium was last year. Marquez, Quartararo and Bagnaia. That seems alien this season. Who would have thought those two would be up there? But in that case, Pete, Come on, let's put you on the spot first, shall we? Let's have you first this week. Let's have your top 3, please.
Well, the first thing is Mark going to be there? I mean, Keith spoke about it. We're in a repeat of a week ago. He's going to have a medical check. Today is Monday, either today or tomorrow. So there'll be an announcement, again, repeat of last week as to whether he's going to ride or not. It seems that this recovery is a bit quicker. There does seem to be a chance that he will, but Alberto Pucci said that they won't need to go through, in his opinion, this whole process of trying the motocross bike, trying the track test. If the doctor says it's 100%, if Mark feels 100%, I think he will come back. But we don't know the result of the medical test yet. So I think, putting Marquez to one side, this is obviously COTA being pretty much one of his most successful tracks along with the Saxon Ring. So you pretty much guarantee him to be on the podium, if not the top step of it. But under normal circumstances, let's say, without all these injuries. So, yeah, putting that aside, I mean, I think is in many ways a similar track to last weekend in Argentina. A bit dusty, a bit bumpy. Who knows what the new surface is going to be like? So I'm going to go for Martin first.
Oh,
I think that he's on form. I think that he's shown he can handle a dirty track with bumps. I think he's got a setting that he can work with. Same Bagnaia for the same reason. I'm going to put faith in him to take this setup that he's found, do better in qualifying, and then maybe put it on the podium. As you said, he was on the podium last year. And I'll go for Rins in third. Former winner in COTA on good form after this past weekend. So that'll be my top 3. So don't expect them to be anywhere near the podium this weekend.
You know what? I just want to say now that I also had Martin for the win. I've also put that down. Just wanted to get that out of the way first of all. But Keith, come on, we'll go for you top 3 next.
I'm going to avoid Jorge Martin then in that case. I'm going to go with Bagnaia. Oh, what a tricky one. Pole Espargaro, Rins.
Okay. How do you predict the unpredictable? That's the ultimate question. Isn't it? I put Martin, and I've gone rogue. I put Mir second, which I don't think is actually that rogue, but I've gone for Mir in second, and then I've gone Binder third. I just thought, you know what, the way this season's going, anyone could be on that final step of the podium. I've gone for Binder. Let us know your top 3.
We haven't heard yet what the reason was for that KTM blow up. The last time I saw a bike expire in the manner that did was a Ducati at Termas de Rio Hondo, where it blew up. I think it was Iannone going back in the day. So you're talking about a fast racetrack. My concern would be if they have to turn it down at all. Like we can discuss that when we get to COTA, I'm sure, but. Seeing a KTM go pop, that's the first one I've seen go spectacularly pop like that I can remember anyway.
Well, it will be certainly one to watch, won't it? But look, we'll keep you abreast of everything across crash.net and for all the latest news and analysis as well in the build-up to COTA this weekend. And then, as Keith says, we'll be back with you straight after to look back at all the action. Get your questions in, leave them in the comments section, tweet, Instagram, Facebook us, or just search Crash MotoGP. Please do leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts as well. And we shall see you right back here next week. But from myself, Keith and Pete, bye-bye.